So that means that I am more boring than, than what you expected. So just because you're going to be interrupting me ruthlessly like you have not done before in the previous session, I'm going to try to rush. You are a nice guy, I have just checked, so I'm going to take advantage of that. So my discussion is going to be the discussion of a person related with marketing, much more than with someone related with science or sociology or other things, so it's going to be the interesting thing for me is that the first half of my presentation, which was already available 3 or 4 years ago, deals precisely with those issues. So if I have to talk about which are the trends that have taken the consumer to the consumer that we have today, those deal precisely with the topic of this session. Then I have to also to discuss with you which are the trends that are coming after these trends, if these trends last or not. And finally, I will propose only a question, and it is if these replaces, these new changes or the changes that we have replace everything or are just adding more colors to the crayon box that we have. So we go first to the, let me see, because this is going the other way around. Okay, no. How do I? Hold a second. How do I push forward with this one? Enter? No? You see? It's the other way around. Okay, like this. No? No, esto 60. Es que está puesto, me lo has puesto en la última, entonces hay que ponerla en la primera. No, la primera, vamos a la primera. Arriba. Ahí. ¿Me dejas un segundín? Hacemos así. Vamos aquí. Y ahora vamos aquí. Y ahora vamos aquí. Ok, ¿y ahora? Así, ¿no? Okay, so first the trends up to today, and those are the 4 that I was discussing as I was telling you in the first half of this lecture. These are ones that I think have been around for a long time, and those have to do with geopolitical changes as a result, the dominance of a discount mentality and a discount model, horizontalization, which is the horizontal change in the needs and wants of the consumer from some categories to others, and finally, something that marketing professors have been discussing always, but paying much more lip service than anything else, which is consumer power. So this is one of the first results that, that is affecting this geopolitical change. What we have today is a tremendous amount of activity that is leaving this part of the world that has only 20 million consumers more, is going to have only 20 million consumers more by 2050, to a part of the world that is going to have 1.8 billion more consumers by 2050, which is Asia. Then if you look at the case of China in particular, China has 20.5% of the population of the world and accounts for 34% of all the cigarette smoking, 50% of all the pig that is consumed, probably with this kind of consumption, 75% of all bypasses by 2052. But the issue is that we have a huge volume of our raw materials and our commodities being consumed in Asia, and this is this originally was a result only that they were producing those goods for us. Now it is the result of the success that our diet has had. We have been very good in selling us the diet that we have to Asia, and now this is affecting the price of the commodities that Asia consumes, which are the same commodities that we consume. So after 10 years of depression, there is a shift in the weight of, in the center of gravity of where is the activity in the world, the design of products, the decisions are going to be taken, and this is a first issue that is affecting us. The second one is which are the groups that will affect us more in the future, and it's the retired, the early retired, immigrants. So here I fit completely with the topic of the session and I'm very comfortable, but there is one that we are missing, and it is single size households or smaller size households, which is also partly a result of this composition of retired and immigrants, but partly also a result of many emancipated consumers as a result of more jobs, as a better economic activity over the last years, feeling comfortable to leave their households, going to live with someone else, and establishing smaller households with a much, let's say, less rich demography that we were discussing. This is to me one of the most amazing results of this last year. 3 of the 4 nominees to the Oscar of this year were women above 60, let's say. But probably they will say that it's less than that. But that's the issue. Is that why is this happening? Well, it is happening because there is a big response. We are taking much more into care these consumers, because these consumers do not download content for free. They go to the cinemas and they pay their videos and DVDs. And importantly, if you look at who are the male actors that probably have more prestige today in the movies, you find people like Clint Eastwood, like Jack Nicholson, like Sean Connery, and these guys are clearly the heavyweights of this business, much more than others that are around. So this is telling you about the shift, a cultural shift, which traditionally used to look at the young as the aspirational group of actors and actresses and musicians, to something completely different. These days you go to the street and you find the concerts of the likes of, I don't know, but from the Rolling Stones to the Who. You wonder if these guys were alive, but they happen to have to go out and play for boomers, and also because they need it for their pockets. But that's part of an issue. We're really being exposed to a change in this culture. So this culture, this sector, will probably be offshored as well. So we always tend to look at this industry. This is Mr. Bling Bling, my friend. He has money. He has an excellent taste for fashion, as you see, and drinks and smokes, and it's likely to be Asian also in the future, more than from any other place in the world. This is a fantastic industry, and we know it in this country. I am very cynical at this, you know, that people talk about lifestyle. I registered death style, because I think that there is a phenomenal industry that starts when one realizes at 50 that he has cholesterol, or starts to have diabetes or something like that. I do all of these. So when you realize this, and you realize that you may be dying at 150, you realize that they're going to be 100 years ill, and you want to go to a place where they take care of you. And this is places where you have 300 days a year of sun, where you have nurses, where you have priests, psychiatrists, and physicians, and where you have lots of waiters, and you have people that clean your house. So this creates a fantastic opportunity for this country, which is also related with know-how, because at the end, most of the challenges that we're going to have are challenges of taking these 100 years from 50 to 150 and filling them with something, because I imagine that from 100 to 150, you're going to be in bed. So that creates also a very strong opportunity for the industry, which is currently being taken advantage only by the pharma industry, and in a completely uncompeted fashion. So there is lots of room there. The immigrant nation is another issue. We were discussing, if we get into 150, Africa is regressing below 50. It's the only place in the world where every year you die younger. The biggest thing that a mother can do for his son in Africa is getting into a boat and crossing to Spain, because the life expectancy of his son is today increased by 21 years. By your 150 years, it would be increased in 3 times the average lifetime, that if that was the case, if that happened. Because in all likelihood, Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, will keep regressing, because there is a complete generation missing of 16 million orphans which are there, and probably this is not going to be very helpful for them in terms of progressing. So I think that no matter how far away we put Africa, they will keep coming, and no matter if we don't have jobs here, they will keep coming, because it's escaping from the dark well of misery, oppression, and ignorance, and it's an opportunity to come here, if we don't do anything fixing Africa. Now, when they come here, will they converge with us? Well, the issue is that in most cases they do. Most of the ethnic concepts that we have here come through the United States. We very unlikely create ethnical concepts here, for instance, in food, because we have probably a stronger culture in food. But when they come, for instance, this is a section of a hypermarket here in Spain, and you see here bananas that are for frying rather than for eating. Now, I can assure you that Spaniards do not know how to fry bananas. And in all likelihood, this is going to be bought now by a young male that would take the banana and eat it and realize that, that it's horrible and you should not buy in that store ever again. So it's important to inform in terms of having converging or being converged. And in all likelihood, we are going to be converged. So we have 100 million insured consumers all around the world, which are the immigrants that have left their countries. This is an example of a halal bill, which is available in halal lamb, which is available in, also in supermarkets here in Spain, but it has to be labeled in their own qualities. And this is the ultimate revolution, which puts into the same perspective small households, elderly, and immigrants, which is a bulk service of any sort of product, which you start to see in many supermarkets. So people that do not have the resources, people that do not have the right size to take at home, or people that do not see very well the labels, like the elderly, go and consume, and also because they have consumed these 50 years ago, maybe. Now, single households is the other item that is growing dramatically. We take shopping trips to supermarkets and film what is going on and take pictures. And this is a very typical image in supermarkets these days, which is a lady with no baskets or cart or anything, only what she can carry in her hands, which is the average purchase that you make in supermarkets, which is not very good news for them, self-labeling an apple. So this is the purchase of the day. And another one, which is probably affluent, again without a basket, doing the same in the specialty cheese section. She is probably affluent because she carries a Furla bag, so that's the other issue. But in most of cases, when you find someone young in the supermarkets, you find them without bags. And this puts supermarkets at the same level of convenience stores, gas station stores, so there is also a big demographic change that has to do with this type of consumption. So what do seniors, immigrants, and independents have in common? Well, that they need discounting. And discounting is a technological revolution. Discounting is there because there is cheap sources of production for products that can be sold in discount stores. That is Asia today. Also because it is a technological revolution because it caters tremendously well the three segments that we saw before. At 65, the number of references that you recall of fast mover consumer goods on average per category is 3. At 70 is 2. At 75 is 1 or none. At 150, I don't know what it's going to be, but the issue is why should you offer tremendous variety in stores if people only remember the leading brand? This is what discounting does for you. What discounting does is reduces the number of SKUs, the offerings that you have in the stores. It's in proximity, so you don't have to go with a car. It is cheap, so you can afford it if you are an immigrant or if you are someone that has just emancipated. And even in many cases, many of the elderly, this is a very interesting option as well. But then the other thing is, if you are a sub-Saharan African and you have immigrated to Spain, how many brands do you know? How many brands did you learn in your country for FMCGs? Probably none. So why wouldn't you take the private label of the supermarket with a very low price? So discounting is here to win. All these guys that are here today represent generic brands of their categories. You couldn't be talking about furniture without talking about IKEA. You couldn't be talking about appliances without talking about MediaMarkt. MediaMarkt entered this country 5 years ago. This year becomes the second largest vendor of appliances with 2 billion. So that's a very successful story. You cannot talk about airplanes without talking about EasyJet. I had on Monday a discussion with the CEO of EasyJet in Spain. These guys live on £1 per seat. This is the margin that they have and what they have to get in order to be profitable. So they have to find all possible ways. Talk about this to Lufthansa, or talk about this to Swissair, which doesn't exist because of them, or talk about them about Alitalia, which is the next guy coming. And so this is really a very serious technological revolution, and it has to do with the type of consumers that we have. Given the choice of variety and cost, consumers go for cost. And this is in most categories. And with the savings that they have in some categories, they are able to buy the things that interest them in other categories. During this summer, we had overcapacity in every European airport, every important European airport. That meant that you were overbooked, you lost your luggage, you were surrounded by zillions of people, all the airlines that were landing in those airports, most of them were losing money. So that is telling you about the strength of discounting as a technological revolution. Now, cheap and nasty is a losing concept. This is the first store of Zara in Coruña in 1975, which is nice. It's a nice garage. Now, this is today what they are building. And it's nice, cheap, quick, bright, fun, and accessible, and it cannot be other way. And these guys are exposing this discounting consumer. Look at the terminal of Cork Airport. This is a low-cost air terminal. So consumers are getting accustomed to this discount mentality, and this is the second trend that affects them importantly. And it is necessary also to have a horizontalized demand. What is horizontalization? Is the fact that things that you have known for a long time ago, you tend to turn them into a commodity, and you find a discount model to buy it, where you have a technology. Consumers have strategies for optimizing, such as buying private labels, looking for bidding, getting information from the internet, whatever. But there are other categories where they cannot do that. For instance, here we have one, which is Starbucks. Starbucks is something that people do not need to consume, but want to consume. iPods, for instance. Who thought that we were going to need 7,000 things in a small, in order to be someone that liked music, or that even didn't like too much music, but with less than 6,000, if you're a teenager, you wear an L here, and they don't want that. Plastic surgery, mass plastic surgery. Here in Spain, we have a company where I sat in the board of that company to took it public, then I left. You see that it worked tremendously well with me, which is Corporación Dermostética. We're conducting 150,000 plastic surgery operations every year. How the hell can Spaniards afford 150,000 operations? What do they do to do that? Well, some of the things that they do, I will tell to you right now. Some of the sources. We have had more income per household as a result from higher employment, and this is something that is happening all around the world. People are getting more employment than ever. Households are getting 2 persons winning salaries, and this gives you buying power. The second thing that we have been doing, we have been spending the discounting check. Americans, who always have figures for everything, say that the amount that the check that the mass merchandisers write every year to consumers that shop there is about 100 billion. This 100 billion, which is discount savings, is spent in industries where people want to spend. Here in Spain, I did the same calculation for FMCGs, and it's 1.8 billion a year, the check that the discount industry in food gives consumers. Now, these 1.8 billion, only 8% returns to the food business. The other 92% goes to be spent in other product categories. Another thing that you do is you have the availability of copies, which is also called democratization. On the left-hand side, you have a Netro outfit of $1,500. In the right-hand side, you have a Zara outfit of $180. So through democratization, you also get the product. Another thing is you get in debt. And currently, this is affecting very significant groups of consumers all around the world. And it is probably going to be one of the most dangerous things happening, especially in the United States, where people are in debt and are going to be foreclosed because of banks not wanting to support this, not having liquidity and wanting it back. And this is very significant because it's probably the most dangerous thing having in front of the consumers all around the world. The other thing that you can do is be subsidized to do it, as it happens in automobile or in green energy. Another thing that you can do is declare yourself bankrupt, which is something that is also happening. You see that in Spain and everywhere else is negatively correlated with income. So the more money that you make, the less that you tend to get into bankruptcy, and we are at very low rates. You thought that Spaniards were not serious. Look at this. Japanese are less serious than Spaniards. They are at a double rate of bankruptcy that we are. And the other one is simply avoiding consumption. So many people are just avoiding consumption. So what is the fourth trend that has taken us to where we are? Is consumer power. And consumer power is a result of technology. Look at this. This is one of my favorites. This is a community called Aldi fan. How can someone become a fan of something like Aldi? You have to be really sick. in order to become a fan of Aldi. But this is what is happening. There is many people that the most important thing that there is for them today is to pay a low amount of money. So you are Wolfgang and you are in Wuppertal and you have just bought a second-hand Porsche 911 and you want to change your wheels, and what you do is you enter here, you post a message saying that you're looking for this, and you have another guy from Wuppertal that tells you, look, I have been I went to a garage that is in my street and is going bankrupt, and I have checked and they have Pirelli 6000s, which will do very well for your car. I have left a message with the guy telling him that you want to order all 4 of them, and here is his email, you can talk to him. Well, we all have brothers-in-law, and brothers-in-law are supposed to be the ones that tell you where to buy cheap things. If you have a certified brother-in-law, probably this is what he has to do. Now imagine if you had 180,000 brothers-in-law, which is the size of this community. This introduces pressure, introduces power. In this country, we ousted our former president through SMSs. And last Christmas, the sales of Catalan champagne, Cava, were also boycotted by consumers using SMSs. So currently consumers know how to, and the sales were affected 2 Christmases ago, significantly. Now, this is, how could we have consumers do something with their technology that was not only negative, that was positive? Well, this is where a lot of money is going today in advertising and research in trying to get this kind of orientation. So now, what is happening? We have a real estate going burst, like everyone else. We have oil going down the ceiling, and we still support it because of the dollar-euro parity. We have our tomatoes becoming almost, because of this tremendous consumption of tomatoes suddenly all around the world, with 1 billion more consumers of tomatoes and a reluctance to produce genetically modified tomatoes, so we still have to produce them in the amount of time necessary, which is another silly thing. I mean, we will not be able to have oil, and we will not be able to eat tomatoes which are not genetically modified, because the amount of people that is getting into the market to consume this kind of goods makes it close to impossible. We have the stock exchange, which seems to be bipolar recently, and then we have consumers that have chosen to stop consuming because they are sated. They have absolutely everything that they can buy. So, game over. What are the next trends? Well, the emerging trends are for the consumer of 2015. So we will not be around together by then, or you may have forgotten. Maybe you may have forgotten this afternoon. I think that those are the four important groups, which are anti-consumerism, subrogation of personal responsibilities or regulation, and the big brother entry in our lives to control what we do, new targets, and the sustainability of the mass marketing model. So anti-consumerism, what do I mean by anti-consumerism? What I mean is people that have it all and are too busy to go shopping. Second, indifferent about having more, which are the ones that are into subsistent consumption, all the people that have decided to downshift. Why do I have to work 16 hours to have more things if I almost have everything? And besides, I'm going to inherit. So who cares? In this country, 80% of the Spaniards have the house where they live, own it, which is, we save in stones, we save in buildings. Now, 20 years from now, there are going to be more people giving houses in inheritance than people receiving houses in inheritance. So why would you work? And why would you invest in real estate also? So that will produce probably an stampede of sales of buildings with 80% of the people owning their houses. But why would you work more, or why would you spend? You have the house that your aunt gave you, and then what you do is you work in a job that pays for 5 hours of work, and then you get into a diesel consumption. You stop being a turbocharged consumer, and you go chup, 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 all the way to diesel. So you become a diesel target and get accept a rain check. In a minute, we go back to the diesel targets. Then you become, there are others that are moneyless, and this is the trap of subprime in the United States, or the trap in my country of the renegotiation of your mortgage. So what you do is you take all your consumer credit, add it to your mortgage, and renegotiate it at the price of your mortgage. But this means that you're in debt for the rest of your life, 60 years of your life paying every month. So this changes your expectations as a consumer. Then the missing, which are the hostile to the system, the people the squatters that get into houses, or the people that download contents for free, or the people that steal in supermarkets and go to their page. We have one here, which is yomango.com, which tells you how to steal in supermarkets and which are the tricks, and people connect there. It's very funny to see what they do, and they do it. So the anti-system. And then you have the collateral damage, which results from a responsible consumer. So it's important to be responsible, and we are all in favor, but we have to know that this means less consumption. And since I am interested in more consumption more than less, I bring this to your attention. So every day that this message, which is very important, progresses, consumption will go down. And that's irrefutable. Then, subrogation in personal responsibility. What do I mean by this? Well, all these products are what is considered now the toxic environment. Cigarettes, wine, gaming, big hamburgers, speed. If you combine speed with wine, it's even more complicated. Diamonds are also under scrutiny, and chocolate advertising. So what is happening with all these things? Well, here, this is a very well-known guy in Spain, which is a guy that was taken from his grandparents because his grandparents were overfeeding him. So it became, you should have seen the poor granddads. They were, the grandmom and granddad, they were like Bonnie and Clyde, two criminals. Well, we have a process of social intervention which has to do with these issues, and by opposition to the model that makes you responsible of your things, which is we will call it the practitioner model, which every case has its diagnostic. What is important is finding who is sick, private reasons more than environmental causes, genetics or personal choice are the things that determine your behavior, individual treatment, personal accountability, individualism, respect to privacy, only medical intervention, or attribution and risk if you fail in your diagnostic are the important things to a public health model that is not interested in each case, but in epidemics and social alarm that they bring. They are not interested in who is sick, but how many are sick, not private reason, but environmental causes, in particular this toxic environment that we're talking about, and the definition, the epistemological definition of toxic, which is something that is subject to discussion. From individual treatment to prevention of the behavior, from personal accountability to toxic environment, from individualism to collective responsibility, well, this rings a bell. So this sends a signal also to the industry. In many industries that are still not considered fully toxic have to find a way of not becoming perceptually or seriously toxic, because government is unstoppable in terms of those things. In most countries in the world, with the exception of the superpowers, government is not anymore there. Here, government is in Brussels. And the only thing that can do, guys, in this country is to prohibit things, because they cannot really do many more things. In many ministries, in many departments in Spain, in Belgium, in France, government is not around anymore. What you have is a number of guys that act as if. And one way that they can do something is prohibit things. They become majors more than politicians, and majors are the only guys that can really have direct power on prohibiting things. They say, dig a hole here, they dig a hole. Prohibit digging holes here, it's forbidden. So that's something that is happening. The new targets. Which are the 7 groups that I think will be important in the future? The first is teenagers, because teenagers is the first group that has been exposed fully from birth to a new technologies in terms of being informed about products. We all use new technologies, but we are still TV and radio people. So no matter how proficient we become, we are formatted by a different technology. These guys are formatted by a different technology, and they consume the previous media, but this is why they're different. The second one is the decadence of the male, the way that you were discussing, but look, this one, no matter how many water he drinks, he still gets pregnant. This is absolutely amazing. No, this is one of the things that is happening. Parity, which is going to be launched from governments in the places where it is not considered as such, is creating a segment of powerful women doing things that previously were only done for men, that demands a different kind of attention, demands a different kind of information, different way of processing information from women to men, and this is probably one of the areas of growth in the future that is going to be most interesting. I was the other day at a dealer with my wife, and while she was alone in the dealer was asking her, "Where is your husband?" Which is the most typical question that you get in dealerships when you are a woman and go to buy. Where is the man that was with you? Because they are more comfortable selling cars still to men, which is something really sad. The third one is the differentiation of the big cities and the small cities. This is the city where you are today is an example of what I'm talking. This city is as comparable to Spain as Shanghai is comparable to China. I mean, the world is becoming a world of large cities with large airports, with huge infrastructures, with millions of people going there because it's where the jobs are. It's where the jobs are, thus is where the young people go. It is where real estate is in a bubble. It is where services are. And it is where congestion and large queues and traffic jams and these kind of things happens. In the small villages, you don't have anything of this happen. You don't have jobs, you don't have young people, services are marginal. You don't have real estate bubbles. The real estate has been burst for the last 40 years, and this is producing a significant difference, which will be also different in terms of the marketing that we do. Then more information on the customer. This book is Martina Schneider, Supermarket Detective, which is another German invention. It's a book that tells you differences of private labels with brands and what to shop in each case. More immigrants coming, Mr. Bling Bling being exported and insourced, and a society of sick people to be catered. And then finally, the sustainability of the mass marketing model. The question is if mass marketing is alive after all these things, after this change in media, this heterogeneity of consumers, these challenges. And my answer to this is that maybe what we need is more crayons in the crayon box, and I'm done. Thank you.